Hello. Welcome to this series of fairly informal videos talking about Splunk. The whole point is for me to archive some of the knowledge that I have, so either I can use it as a reference later on, or if I need to explain something to somebody, hopefully I have a video for it that I can point to. This is kind of the beginning of all of it, so we're just going to go through setting up Splunk on your machine so you can have it up and running for the rest of the videos in the series. So to start with, we'll go to Google or whatever search engine. Just go type in Splunk download, and you'll see this download Splunk page. And on here, you'll have to log in first, or it'll probably prompt you to log in, but we're not looking for Splunk Cloud or the Universal Forwarder for now. We want to set up Splunk Enterprise. So you'll click on Get My Free Trial. Even if you're installing Splunk Enterprise, like you have a license, you're still going to click that button. So we have two options here. And if you're on, if you're on Windows, you have two options. If you're on Linux, you're pretty much stuck with one option. So for Windows, the two options is you have this MSI file you can download and install, which makes it super easy. You have a wizard you go through for the install, but the issue, you might run into some issues, and plus most enterprise Splunk environments aren't running on Windows, it's running on Linux. So what I would recommend instead of doing the MSI is using the Windows subsystem for Linux. It might be a little complicated at first to set up, but once you have it set up, you'll pretty much have a Linux environment you can have Splunk running in, and then you can still interact with it from your Windows machine. So that's what we're going to do in this video. Instead of doing the Windows install, we're just going to do the Linux install. So the prerequisite for this is if you search in Windows WSL, and, oh no, is it Windows WSL, Linux WSL? I don't know, but in the Microsoft documentation, you'll see how to set up WSL. It might be different if you're on Windows 11 potentially, but it's pretty easy. I think this command is all you need. And then you'll have to pretty much run PowerShell as administrator, run this command, and then I think you'll have to restart your machine after you do this. And then after you have WSL configured, you'll need to go to the Microsoft Store, like go to your Start menu, go to the Windows Store, whatever it's called now. Search for like Ubuntu, and if you download Ubuntu, you're pretty much done. You have, at that point, WSL is configured. You have Ubuntu configured or installed, and when you go to your start bar and type in Ubuntu, you'll be greeted with something like this. It may take a few minutes to start up, but you'll pretty much have a Linux machine running on your Windows machine, and it shares the same file system, so you can access the same files and stuff like that. So I'm not going to go super in depth with that. It's pretty easy. You should be able to figure this out. If you can't, just look up a YouTube video or just follow that documentation. So now that we have WSL configured, Ubuntu is running, and if you go to your start menu and run Ubuntu, you'll get a pop-up like this. Yours might be a different color, but we'll go from here. So we'll go to the Linux page. We're on 930. We're just going to go to the TGZ file, which is the compressed tarball. We're just going to click the copy download link or copy wget link. We're going to Control A in here or whatever, copy that. Go over to your terminal. You're going to paste that in. Actually, before we paste it in, we're just going to move over to, sorry, got a new keyboard. We're just going to move over to the temp directory, paste it in. And this is going to take a second to download for me, apartment Wi-Fi. So I'll be right back. All right, so I think that took like a minute for me. But it's in here now. So we have the TGZ file. All we need to do is do tar. We're going to extract, so ZXCF. Oh no, ZXBF. And we'll tab complete on the tar file. We're going to do capital C to tell it where to go to, and we're going to do /opt. That's where best practice, that's where Splunk needs to be extracted to. So click enter. Oh crap, permissions. So we're gonna do sudo bang bang to run the last command as root. All right, it's gonna ask for my password. Okay, so now if we go to the op directory, we'll see Splunk here. I think the user by default, it's owned by Splunk, so that's why we see an ID instead of the user. So to change that, I'm gonna chown the whole directory. So chown-r to recursively change the ownership to vcharlie. That's my username. Best practice here is to make a new user called Splunk with limited permissions and then change the ownership to that Splunk user. But just to make it easier with like editing files and all that kind of stuff in the future, for just this lab environment, I'm going to change the ownership to my user. So I'm going to do vcharlie : you can do vcharlie again, so user : group, but if you just leave it blank, it'll just if it's the same user and group, just leave it blank. So vcharlie : space Splunk tab. Oh my god, permission. So sudo bang bang. It changes the ownership of that file. Why does it keep saying that? That's weird. Shouldn't have that. Okay, so now Splunk has been untarred, so we do op Splunk bin Splunk. We can do start. We are going to read the license. We're gonna do yes to read it. We're gonna create an admin user. Sorry if you hear me sniffling or coughing. You can pick whatever user you want here, but I would stick with admin because there are a lot of apps that expect a user called admin to exist. So just from the beginning, I would just create an admin user and then pick a password. Oop, it's probably gonna make me change that. And we'll wait for it. That's pretty much it. There is some other things you can do, like enabling boot start, which allows Splunk to start when the machine starts. But since this is a lab, I'm not going to do that. I'm also not going to enable things like WebSL for now, because I really only want this to start when I want. So when I want to come in and I want to use Splunk, I'll just come in here, do the same command, op Splunk bin Splunk start. And next time, I don't need to go through any of the EULA agreements or anything like that. It'll just start up. So now Splunk is running and listening on port 8000. So if we go to localhost : 8000, we'll be greeted with the login page. So we're just going to log in. And if you had any issues, I'll click save for now. Chrome will let you save the password, but if you enable WebSL and it gives you the whole like self-signed error, Chrome won't let you autofill. So just keep that in mind. And now that's pretty much it. So we have Splunk running on our machine. We can start it when we want to use it. We can stop it whenever. And if the computer you're running it on restarts, it won't start back up until you start it, unless you turn on boot start, which we can talk about in a different video. So if you go to settings and go to licensing, the last thing I want to note is you have a 500 megabyte trial license on here, which I think it lasts for 30 days. With the trial license, you can pretty much do everything. Like if you wanted to make an index or cluster, you could do that. You still have like forwarder management capabilities. You can create searches, reports, like pretty much everything is unlocked. The only limitation is the 500 megabytes, and it only lasts for 30 days. After 30 days, it reverts to like a perpetually free license. But with that license, a lot of features of Splunk Enterprise gets turned off. So I think, for example, saved searches won't work. So if you have a report or an alert running, like that's not going to work. Anything that relies on scheduled searches won't work. Not saved searches, scheduled searches won't work. There are alternatives. So if you're using this as a development environment where you're developing an app, what you can do is go through and get the Splunk dev license. There are two types of dev licenses. So there's this dev license, which lives in the dev.splunk site. So if you're using it to develop an app, you get a 10 gigabyte per day license that expires every 6 months, but it unlocks all of the Splunk Enterprise features, so you can develop your app in a normal Splunk environment instead of a heavily limited version with that free license. And there is another license, which I think is this test license. It's a 50 gig per day one, but it does have some limitations. It's not as open as a dev license is, but it's also not as closed as the 500 meg free license. So whatever fits your need, just go with that. If you're just testing Splunk in your lab environment, you don't really care about having more than 30 days, like this free license with the 500 megs per day is completely fine for now. All right, cool. So we got the Splunk instance up. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.